Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by BetUS TV. DJ Zullo here. After the Knicks get a win, 122-103 over the Washington Wizards in a game that saw March Madness sort of infiltrate Madison Square Garden a bit in the second half. That was a wild one, and not really sure about 10 minutes ago where I was going to go with this. Now, the Knicks didn't make it a relatively comfortable win, all things considered, once they brought back the starting unit and once they sort of got their bearings after the Wizards outscored them at a point in the second half, 42-17, cut a lead that was 30 plus points down to 4 at one point. Marcus Smart hitting shots, one-legged Dirk fadeaways, pull-up threes from the top of the key. Wild stuff. He leaves the game. The Wizards' young players re-enter the game, and it was pretty much downhill from there for the Wizards. But a game that saw the Knicks get a win, and maybe threw some water on the flames that had been building over the past couple of weeks, especially over the last two games. Now, when you play the Wizards and you have a huge lead and you take your foot off the gas a little bit in the second half, you allow them to get back into the game. That's not going to put the flames out. Like, there's still embers brewing underneath. And the question from this game is how much what happened tonight can carry over into the Dallas game, into the Clippers game, to see if there's anything sustainable out of this effort. And to be frank, in terms of how Karl Anthony Towns performed, you would expect him to dominate the matchup against Alex Sarr, a guy who's 205 pounds, overmatched physically, skill-wise, basketball awareness-wise. Like, he just wasn't a matchup for Karl Towns, who drove through him time and time again. Towns would have had a 35, 40-point night if his three was going down. And then OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges performed admirably in their minutes. I thought Anunoby was great, especially in transition, and Bridges had a barrage in the first half, scoring, I believe, 20 or 25 points in the first half, and really sort of helped being the catalyst to build the Knicks lead up to where they had it in the first half. But you would expect those players to perform that way against that group that the Washington Wizards were playing, a team that is bereft of talent, and the talent they do have is not nearly ready to compete at an NBA level. They have some prospects on that team that have upside, but they are 19, 20, 21 years old and just not ready to play. So you would expect the Knicks starters to go out and dominate. And for the most part, they did, other than some moments in the second half that got a little dicey. Now, I want to start here in terms of like focusing on the specific players and, talk about the point guards, because since Jalen Brunson went out, it's been Deuce McBride taking the mantle and sometimes performing at a level that was commensurate with what you would want from a starting NBA point guard: the defense, the shooting, some improved playmaking. But really, there's a ceiling with Deuce McBride in terms of creating an advantage, some of the shot making aspects that you need from a lead guard in the modern NBA. So I thought Cameron Payne, to start with him, came out tonight and really set the tone with his pace, with his shooting, with his shot making. I thought the Knicks in general did a great job, and it was a concerted effort for them to push the pace, get up and down, get into transition. And that was borne out in some of the three-point attempts. They shot a ton of threes in the first half when they were moving and rolling. And I thought Cameron Payne was a huge catalyst for that. Set the tone. And it was nice for him, a guy that hasn't been shooting well for a good stretch here, about 10-game stretch of shooting 33% from three, under 50% in terms of the true shooting. So he has been struggling for a while here. And I know the final numbers don't look great. He struggled a bit in the second half, but I thought he really set the tone. And, we did get some pretty positive news, it would seem, regarding Jalen Brunson. He's out of the walking boot. He seems like it's moving in a really positive, pretty efficient direction in terms of his recovery. So maybe he is back sooner than later. But they're going to need some point guard play that is going to allow them to generate some offense. And I thought Cameron Payne from the start of this game provided that. And it's important for him because, like it or not, and we can get into the other point guard that had a pretty important night, but the easy money right now is that Cameron Payne is going to get playoff minutes, and he's going to get minutes that maybe the fan base doesn't think he deserves or should get at this point, but I think he's going to get those minutes. At least standing here right now, I think Cameron Payne is going to get playoff minutes. So they need him to provide some offense off the bench, the shot making, the 3-point shooting. Like, those things are critical for a team that doesn't have a lot going in terms of bench scoring. So for Payne to come out, be the energy, be the driving force of the pace that I thought was so critical tonight, I thought was really important. And then the other point guard that came in the second quarter and sort of did all the things that he was billed to be able to do. Tyler Kolek entered the game and continued and took the baton from Cameron Payne, continued to push the pace. But what separates him from Cameron Payne is, and I tweeted this earlier, Cameron Payne, for all his shot making, like, that's what he wants to do. Like, he will hunt shots. Tyler Kolek hunts shooters. And you saw him have a clear intention to get Mikal Bridges open threes, cross-court passes, transition passes, like getting him involved, getting him shots, knowing that Bridges had it going. And it's not just the mere act of being aware of the pass, but to be able to pinpoint those passes in a way that is comfortable for the shooter is critical. And I think this is going to be a thing of his that we're going to look at as a Tyler Kolek skill, where guys just shoot better when he's passing the ball from him. And, some of those passes were not elite, where you're getting an advantage and you're getting into the paint and you're driving and kicking, or you're making like insane hook cross-court passes out of a pick and roll. Like, these weren't the flashiest or most difficult passes in the world. But he was seeking out shooters and he was hitting them in a way that was comfortable and easy for them to get into their shooting motion. I don't think that should go unnoticed. And there was the one play where Hart gets a rebound, and typically the Knicks point guard, whether it's Brunson or Payne, will sort of jog back, knowing that Hart, once he rebounds, is going to usually be the force of the transition offense and grab and go. But Kolek, who had seen Bridges make a couple of shots in a row, immediately sprinted out towards half court to get an opening for Hart to pass him the ball. Now the transition, the fast break has started. Kolek catches it, finds Bridges with a clean bounce pass into the right corner. Bridges makes the shot. That play developed and happened because Kolek had the awareness to go and get the ball and then make the pass to the guy that was feeling it, on fire, and had it going. So those are the passes. Those are the things that could separate Kolek from your typical point guard that maybe won't have the on-ball scoring ability to lean on. Like, Kolek, for him to thrive in the NBA, is going to have to be a dynamite passer. And we don't know yet if he has the ability to really put pressure on a defense with the ball in his hands. That, to me, is still an open question. And we saw in the second half him get into the paint and struggle a bit. He did have one finish against AJ Johnson where he sort of opened up like he was going to get the DHO from Cat and then just turn the corner with his right hand, finish with his left. That was a fantastic finish over a couple of Wizards. But there was also another play where he got into the paint, didn't really have anywhere to go, turned it over. So there's still something that we need to be skeptical about regarding Kolek with the ball in his hands. Like, what is required in terms of like ball screening and actions for him to really bend a defense. Now, he can do it in transition. And I thought that's why in the first half he was so dynamic, is because that game was really up and down. The Knicks were, as I mentioned, Cameron Payne set the tone. The Knicks were really getting the ball moving up and down the courts, probably as fast and as demonstrative as any point in the season. And Kolek, that's where he is going to thrive in his early years in the NBA until he starts to develop some of the really high level ball handling aspects to get into the paint. But right now he is going to be a fantastic playmaker in transition. And that's, I thought, what really led to the 7 assists in the first half. So he was impressive. He was good enough to where I think it is warranted just to want to see more of him. And I think the coach should play him more. We may look at this, if you want to call it a competition, although I don't really think it's a true competition between Payne and Kolek in terms of the backup point guard position right now, because I do think it's Cameron Payne's until further notice. But while Cameron Payne, again, played well tonight, Kolek played well enough to where I would like to see some more minutes from him. And we don't know how long Deuce is going to be out. I don't know if they're calling it a strained groin or a contusion, because he did take a knee to the groin in the Hornets game. But if it's a strain, then this could be a multiple game absence where Kolek is going to play. And we'll really get a pretty good sample size regarding who should be the backup point guard when Jalen Brunson comes back. And that's an important part of this team right now. It's something that has been, I thought it was a positive for most of the season, because Payne was shooting so well from three and providing a ton of energy and pace to the second unit. But because his shooting has degraded in a significant way, he has not performed like a quality backup point guard for a significant period right now. So let's see maybe if we could create a true competition between these two. And I know it's an uphill battle for Kolek for reasons that I don't know, regarding his actual skill level. I don't know if he has enough to perform against really good defenses in the NBA and get to where he needs to get to and make those passes. Like, do it against the Wizards is one thing, but do it against a high quality defensive team is quite another. And his performance and his skill and his talent within that confines of a half court offense, I'm skeptical. I am. And with that said, I still think he has shown enough to where if we can get a sample here of 5 or 6 games of these two players sharing the point guard duties, maybe Kolek can sort of take it from Payne. And I think he would have to take it from him because, as I said, it's Payne's job until further notice. And Kolek will have to do a lot, in my view, to take it based on what the coach prioritizes. The veteran aspect of this is key. But that first half, I think, was good enough to where we can look at Kolek as a viable option going forward. And I know he didn't make shots from the perimeter, but I do think his shooting is going to play. As a catch and shoot player, he shot wonderfully well off the catch in Marquette. And his shot looks good. His free throw shooting looks great. I think from a standstill position, he's going to be able to space the floor. And that is one advantage he has over Payne, who has been a better shooter off the dribble this year than he has off the catch. And I think for the Knicks, it might be more of a priority to get a guy that you can be confident can make shots off the catch at 40%. And that feels like a high bar, but I think Cole can reach that bar. So that's a big takeaway here, that performance. Beyond other than, those two players, in terms of and then the game as a whole, going up the way they went up, it was, I don't want to say reasonable to expect them to take their foot off the gas, but to let the Wizards get it to 4, I thought was pretty bad. Now, they made it to where it wasn't a true embarrassing effort, because when, the full starting unit came back in the game and Anunoby re-entered, it just, the whole vibe of the game changed. Anunoby actually guarded Marcus Smart on one possession, created a missed shot. That Smart leaves the game right after that. Knicks were able to pretty much take control from that point, and winning by 19 in this game. Look, you're going to take it, and now you get a win. Now you get some time off until you get Dallas on Tuesday. You get a back-to-back Tuesday, Dallas. These are at MSG, and then the Clippers. So maybe you could string some wins together at MSG. We know the travel was brutal. We know that. We know the team was not an excuse, but they were dog tired. San Antonio, Charlotte, like that's a real thing. So hopefully once they get to the Dallas game on Tuesday, they can now build off this. And look, they had the 5th best record in the NBA too. I think that's also part of, and this is where I'll finish. This is the big picture aspect to where the Knicks are right now. 5th best record in the NBA. Jalen Brunson on the mend and looking like he is trending in a positive direction. Once Brunson returns, and I talked about this with John during our Patreon podcast, what really has changed for the worse? Because if you look at when Jalen Brunson returns, I think they're in basically the same position as they were prior to the injury, with the only exception being Mitchell Robinson placing them in an even better spot. Despite a lackluster performance tonight, Mitchell Robinson, in general, as a whole, has looked really good this season. So you can get Jalen Brunson back in the next couple of weeks. The Knicks will have, let's say, they have the 5th best record at that point. They kind of steady the ship a little bit. 5th best record, Brunson coming back. They have the 3 seed. What has really changed? Now we would be back to, the Knicks and the ceiling, and how do they match up with Boston, and can they be competitive in that series, and that's in the potential second round matchup. But that's what we were talking about prior to Brunson getting hurt. And it felt over the past few games like the sky was falling. But you take a step back, and you sort of take account of where they are right now as a team. And it's, I think, more likely than not that run, those 2 games that left such a sour taste in everyone's mouth, rightfully so, was really just a blip on the radar. And that the team did steady the ship after that. They got their captain back in short order. And now we would be left with just figuring out how to compete with Boston. And that is maybe an unanswerable question right now, but is the question, and was the question prior to Brunson getting hurt. So you get a win tonight, a much needed win. You douse the flames. As I said, the embers still burn, but you have some room here to get a couple other wins at least against Dallas, a decimated team injury-wise, and a Clipper team that's a quality, good basketball team that you should beat on your home floor, even though it's going to be the second of a back-to-back. And you get a little 3-game win streak. You start to feel better about yourself. And that's where I think the thought needs to be. 5th best record in the NBA. We need to put that into our calculation when we get so, and I'm guilty of it too, we get so honed in on every possession, every play, game, quarter, that we lose perspective, the big picture. And the big picture right now is pretty good for the Knicks. Like, there are a lot of teams that would trade positions with us in a heartbeat. And the captain's on his way back. And that, to me, gives me a lot of hope. This game didn't sort of make that any stronger, but you know what? A win is a win is a win is a win, and you get them when you can, and you figure it out, and you get another win against Dallas, and you start to string together some quality victories until Brunson is back, and you start to build towards the playoffs, because that'll be the next step. All right, a lot of super chats to get to. Before we do, we got to say hello to our friends at Factor. Are you ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals based on a randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab and go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that you can't beat, which is, for me, the key part of all this, because I think all their stuff is great, but day-to-day things are just busy. 2 young kids, multiple jobs, like a lot of things going on for me. So to have things ready to go and tailored to what I like, I prefer the keto stuff, trying to be carb conscious these days. That's to have those done and tasting great is really important, because keto is a great thing, but it's kind of hard sometimes to make it interesting on a day in day out basis. But Factor is great for that. And listen, if you eat smart with Factor, you're going to get started at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast. Use code Factor Podcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Factor Podcast at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast to get 50% off plus shipping plus free shipping on your first box. Thank you, Factor. And let's get right to the super chats. Mark, behind the scene on the ones and twos. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. And let's get right to it on a Saturday night. Armand Burnyange, butchering your name, Armand. I apologize, but thank you for checking in. Did St. John's die to break the KFS curse? Listen, shout out T Squared. We'll shout them out again later in the show. The curse, yes, is broken. They are right now KFS 4-8 at T Squared, which, if you base it on the Knicks record the past couple of seasons, you would hope that record would be a little bit better. So there was some evidence that a curse was brewing here. So nice to get a win, break the curse a little bit, give some of the patrons at T Squared and all the KFS personalities there something to cheer about. So, and shout out St. John's, great season for them. Rick Pitino being just a fantastic story. the reclamation project for himself as a head coach, and St. John's as a product in New York City is, it's fallen on hard times over the past while here, but to have that team good is just great for basketball in New York City, because I don't know, it's like obviously the Knicks, but St. John's might epitomize New York City basketball more than any other entity outside the Knicks in New York City. So awesome to see them doing well, and shame to see them, bow out early here in the NCAA tournament. But shout out St. John's, great season. Thank you, Armand. Appreciate that. Hush Z, what's up, Hush Z? Can't wait till Shamit is off our squad. Let's go, Knicks. Yeah, so Shamit, in terms of the plus minus, because I was looking at this right before I went on. Well, Knicks only had two guys in the negative column. It was Mitchell Robinson -8 in 17 minutes, and Landry Shamet a -8 in just under 15 minutes. So Landry Shamet, there was a time there, it was like a couple week stretch where it seemed like his shooting had started to round into form a little bit. Like he was making some shots. The defense continued to be serviceable, but the shot making seems to be deserting him a little bit. And, that makes it tough to play him. And I think that was borne out in the plus minus. Like there was just, he has to shoot the ball. One, so he's sort of like checking that box, and he's going to have to start making more of them on a consistent basis for him to really carve out a rotation spot for a team that's got real playoff aspirations. So, I can look at where this rotation is now, and I can look at Shamet and say he's probably on the verge of being an odd man out come playoff time if the shooting is not where it needs to be. And then you just go with, a point guard, McBride and Robinson, and that is your group coming off the bench. But, Shamet theoretically would have provided a role here for this team that was going to be very necessary for some shooting and some just juice off the bench as a scorer. And it's a shame that the shots sort of waxed and waned this year, because you want to be able to rely on him as a shooter. And there's just too many moments where it's just not there. 3 points tonight, 1 of 4 from the field, all 3-pointers. And then, season numbers for him in terms of shooting the ball, he's down to 32%. These are up-to-date numbers. 32% is just not going to cut it for a guy that's a shooter, theoretically. And, the volume is okay. It's decent. On a per 36, he's getting up 6 threes a night. That you probably want that, a couple threes higher. But 32% is not good enough. So while he started to maybe turn around a little bit, you look at the full season, and it's hard to justify the minutes now. But where do the Knicks go? He's not quite wing size, but he's bigger than Kolek and Payne, and he can sort of hold up just a little bit more than those guys. So I understand that defensively you can be a little more confident, with him against some smaller wings, but if he's shooting 32%, he's probably not playable. And that's the cold hard truth of where he is. And I think if this is going to continue, I'm sure he'll get some more regular season minutes, but come playoff time, like it would be hard to justify playing him in a playoff setting. Hush C, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Iceman Sham, what's up, Iceman Sham? Thanks so much for checking in. Wizards had to get Smart out of there, telling him, dude, you're messing up our tank. It's a great point. And it really was such a stark difference in terms of how that team performed once Smart left the game. So Smart on the night, he had 17 points, 6 of 11 from the field, 4-7 from three, a +3 on a night where the Wizards were down by 30 plus at one point and lost by 19. Keyshawn George, a -24. Justin Champagnie, -27. I mean, some really brutal numbers. Colby Jones, a +12. AJ Johnson, who continues to impress. You know, it was a nice little get for them in that Kuzma trade. He was a +2. It's just that's the Wizards, just do a minute on them. They have young talent that is promising, but it feels like other than Sarr, who I think is going to be, because of his defense is going to be excellent eventually. I think he's going to lock into like being a, maybe not quite what Mobley is now, but like a tier below, and that's a quality NBA player for a long time. So I think they're okay there. But it's just the other guys. I think there's just a lot to be desired in terms of maybe some long-term prospects of the guys that played tonight. George is great size, but he's just athletically just doesn't seem like has a lot there. At 6'8", but he moves slow, doesn't get off the ground well. And Carrington, the shot distribution for him is always going to be a concern because he's so honed in on the mid-range. Doesn't seem like he gets to the rim a lot. And then the three-point volume doesn't look like it's going to be something he can fall back on. So it's, you wonder where this team is going to be in 2-3 years. I am very concerned about that draft pick ever conveying that the Knicks currently own, that is heavily protected. But yeah, Smart, listen, good for him to perform at that level with the teammates he's got around him. Competitive guy, obviously, like probably had a little bit extra playing at Madison Square Garden. Yeah, but once he left, it was pretty much downhill for the Wizards from that. Ishman Sam, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Ishman Sam, again, what's going on, man? Thank you so much. And Kolek, man, he got that pure point guard feel that's kind of extinct in this scoring point guard era. He does stand out in that way. And I think it's in one sense, very much a positive, and in the other, I think it could be a negative. And the positive side is what you saw in the first half. The pinpoint passing, the ability to see passes where he's a step ahead of it, the cross-court pass, the Bridges. He sees windows and can make plays that I think most point guards can't get to. And you did not really seeing the pick and roll ability with the pass. And I thought, Robinson, when they were together, I didn't think Robinson was really setting screens well enough. Like he seemed like he was slipping out of them a little bit too quick, trying to get to his lob as he was rolling to the rim. Like I would like Robinson to really set those screens a little more solid, just to give Cole like more of an ability to get into the paint so we can see like what he has once he gets in there, because some of his 2-foot finishing in Marquette was impressive. And we'll see if that can carry over into the NBA. And at this level, you have to be able to finish off too, especially when you're undersized and you're not a great athlete. So for him to be able to have that skill, I think is going to be key for him. And well, at least we saw it in Marquette. Now, whether or not that's going to fully translate into the NBA remains to be seen, because we just haven't seen it with a consistent level. But he's going to need a ball screen, and he's going to need a infrastructure to generate some paint touches for him, because if it's not in transition, I think he's going to struggle touching the paint at a consistent level. And I think that's where his lack of scoring, lack of on-ball creation is going to be a struggle for him long-term. And that's where I think it's a little bit of a negative. I don't know if he's got the ability to shoot off the bounce at a high level. Not going to put it past him to develop that. That's something he didn't really have at Marquette. We'll see if he can develop that in the league. We've seen guys add that to their game, so it's certainly something he can. he's an older rookie too. So that's another part of this. Like the skill development ceiling for him is going to be a bit lower. And that's the trade-off when you bring in a guy that's 23, 24, a seasoned vet basically from college. You're getting a close to a ready-made product. But he's going to have to show some ability to score with the ball in his hands. Because if he's not going to show that ability, it's going to make him a bit too easy to guard in a half court setting where he might top out as a good backup point guard in that way. Like he can be a high level passer, transition playmaker, pick and roll operator, maybe solid defender. Maybe he can get to solid and be a good solid backup point guard. But that's the ceiling if he doesn't develop some real on ball ability to bend the defense. And I think that'll be where, and it won't come this year, but in the next his year 2 and 3, like, can he develop that? And if he does, then we may be talking about a ceiling that is a bit higher than just solid backup point guard. But if you can if you could draft at the end of the early second round a backup point guard, like you've done a great job. A great job. Like you would, I'm sure the Knicks would sign up for 7 to 7 year run here of quality backup point guard play from Tyler Kolek. You get that in the second round. That is an awesome draft pick. Iceman Sham, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Andrew Claudio, what's going on, Andrew? This is for Armand. Much like Juan Soto's Yankee career, the KFS curse is over. Shout out Andrew, everyone else at T Squared. Yeah. Breaking the curse. Although, 4-8 is not the worst record, but I get Andrew wanting to rack up some more wins at T Squared, who's been obviously great partner with KFS. But I wouldn't call it a true curse. But if you did call it a true curse, the curse is now, I think, officially broken until further notice. And, we'll see what that looks like. And Juan Soto, not really following baseball much these days, but seemed to have a really impressive spring training, hitting a bunch of home runs, looking good. I guess all that extra weight he's carrying is not impacting his launch angle. So putting some balls into the stands. So it'll be fun to watch him at Citi Field this year for sure. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. And hope you guys are having a good night at T Squared. What's up, Jessica? How are you? Thanks for checking in. Appreciate that. Thank you for your amazing and solid work on Patreon. If you are not a Patreon subscriber, check out the all new Brunson tier. Benji and I are doing some film work, the Benji Gradebook. So if you are interested, give that a check. So thank you, Jessica, for the shout out. And you've had to host some real stinker games, post-game shows this season. Happy you get a win show. Let's go Knicks. Yeah, so I did thankfully get the thrilling win in Memphis. But yeah, beyond that, it's been rough. Had the Laker debacle at MSG, had the second Cleveland loss. So has been great. And this one is not one of those you're like super excited about in terms of getting a victory based on a 42-17 run, I guess, by the Wizards in the second half. Wizards, by the way, only led the game 2-0, and then the Knicks led the game the rest of the 47 minutes and change, which speaks to both the futility of the Wizards and the dominance the Knicks had for most of the game. But thank you, Jessica. I appreciate that. And thank you for checking in with us. Let's get the T Squared social. Speaking about our friends, time for the Out of Town Scoreboard presented by T Squared Social. Get a free draft beer when you tell them KFS sent you. Visit tsquaredsocial.com to learn about club memberships, trivia nights, sports leagues, and much more. All right, so let's get the Out of Town Scoreboard up, which I did not have ready. I know it's a pretty light schedule tonight, so bear with me here just for a moment. So any the games that are still in progress, let's check that. We have at the half right now, the Kings lead the Bucks 61 to 49. Let's see. Keon Ellis, 18 points. Brooke Lopez, 18 for the Bucks. And then the Lakers down to the Bulls currently. Bulls 46, Lakers 39. Let's see. I think LeBron is playing tonight. Yes, he is. He's back from his groin respite. He is 2 of 5 from the field, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, -9 early. Luka's got 17 and 5 rebounds, couple of assists. So Bulls leading the Lakers there. Second quarter, 8:21 to go, and the rest are final. Pacers get a win, 108 to 103 over the Nets. Tyrese Halliburton, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 12 assists. Don't look now, but Tyrese Halliburton having a really good second half for the Pacers. The Hawks get a win against the Warriors, 124 to 115. Trae Young with a 25, 5, and 10 night. Jimmy Butler, he puts in 25, 4 rebounds and 8 assists. So the Hawks get a pretty impressive win. They continue to sort of have this ability to have these incredible performances that they just cannot sustain. If you didn't see it, check out Steph Curry on all the social media platforms. He made the most incredible shot before the game that you're ever going to see. From one tunnel, cross full court, one-handed with a fade on it, like he was hitting a 5-iron, like one of the most incredible shooting shot displays you're ever going to see. So check that out. Okay. Andrew and Mark just put a note in here. So they have another watch party. So KFS and T Squared are going to be doing another watch party at T Squared Social this Friday, March 28th against the Bucks. All right. So that's the Knicks have handled the Bucks pretty thoroughly this season. So that should be a fun night at T Squared, Knicks and Bucks. That's Friday the 28th, KFS and T Squared Social, Knicks versus Bucks coming out for that one. That should be a great time. Potential playoff matchup if the Knicks falter here, but hopefully not. But in any event, always fun to see the Knicks and the Bucks because the Knicks typically play very well against that team. And that'll do it for the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by BetUS TV. Do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to our channel, leave a 5-star rating wherever you are listening to this episode. Thank you, Mark, for checking in and being on the ones and twos, keeping me honest. Thank you, everyone that tuned in, sending your super chats. We will be back with another KFS postgame show, not till Tuesday, so the Knicks get a little break here as they host the Dallas Mavericks Tuesday night at MSG. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We will have another one soon, but have a great night. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll talk to you soon.